Hey, what's going on, everybody? Cerebro here, and today we are doing a character overlook for Borderlands 3. Now, as you guys may have known, for those that have played Borderlands 3, or maybe those that are just getting into Borderlands 3, there are a lot of new characters and it's hard to choose exactly which is the best, right? One may have a pet, but at the same time, the other one may be able to spawn clones that actually help engage in combat with you. So it's a very hard decision determining what exact character is best for me or what exact character is best for the game. Now, I'm here to tell you straight off the bat that there is no best character, okay? Some may disagree, some may be die-hard Flak fans or die-hard Zane fans or Amara fans, but it really comes down to there is no specific character that is the best. It really comes down to what your playstyle is like. But before I get straight into this, guys, and we get into the nitty and gritty about what character does what and what they're good for, etc., I need you guys to subscribe to the channel. That's the best way for you guys to show your support. That's the best way for you guys to say, hey, this guy has a YouTube channel dedicated specifically to gaming, and his videos are pretty good. They're actually pretty decent. Give me some leeway here, guys. We're still building the channel. But again, like I said, subscribe, like, and leave a comment below, because the best thing about having a small YouTube channel is that I can respond to every single comment. So without further ado, let's get right back into the characters. Now, for those of you that maybe are just starting the game or haven't started the game, there's actually 4 main characters or Vault Hunters that you get to choose from. And these 4 Vault Hunters are Zane, Amara, Moze or Mozzie, I've seen different pronunciations, and Flak. Now, as I said before, guys, there is no specific best character. Some may disagree, but it really depends on your playing style and how you want to actually play the game or develop throughout the game. So we'll just go one by one in each character and say exactly what is so special about that character, what are their main abilities, what are they good for, etc. And hopefully this will help you guys determine, hey, this is the best character for me, and I'm going to be the best Amara or Zane or Flak or Mo. Again, it depends whatever you guys choose. Okay, so let's start with Amara. Amara is a siren. You get familiar with sirens as you play throughout the game, but typically they're good for crowd control, basically because their abilities allow you to do a lot of AoE damage. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with AoE, it just basically means that you can do a lot of damage to groups of enemies at one time. So basically, whenever you do an ability, you can hit a large group of enemies and generally do a large amount of damage. So she has 3 main abilities, one being Phase Grasp, one being Phase Cast, and the third one being Phase Slam. So for Phase Grasp, basically Amara summons a giant fist, this gigantic huge fist from the ground, and basically locks on a target in place for a few seconds. Phase Grasp is an incredibly good ability. Now, for Phase Cast, Amara does send forward an astral projection of herself, dealing damage to everything in its path. I mean, it's absolutely insane the amount of damage that you can do with this ability, especially if you can do it at the right time in front of the right crowd of enemies. And then you have Phase Slam. So Phase Slam is exactly what it sounds like. Amara leaps into the air, slams the ground, and does a ton of AoE damage to every single nearby enemy and basically knocking them out. Now, this ability, again, like I said in the beginning, is one of the main reasons that the Siren or Amara is good for generally AoE or doing high damage to a group of enemies. Now, this doesn't make her particularly best for solo play, even though depending on how you build, I mean, it really doesn't matter. If you can round up a bunch of enemies, hit your ability, she's going to be doing fairly good damage to that group of enemies and then getting out of there, waiting for your ability, healing up, or using your weapons. So it really comes down to the fact that just know Amara uses a lot of AoE abilities, and that's what you're going to have to get used to and master if you want to play Amara. Now, moving on to Flak. So Flak's main benefit, and this is why you've probably seen 80 to 90% of the people that play Borderlands 3 are Beastmasters is because Flak has a special ability where he can bring an animal along to attack enemies and draw attention. Now there are 3 different pets that you can choose from. There's a spider ant, and basically the spider ant boosts health regeneration. There's also a pistol totting jabber that boosts speed, and acid vomiting skag that increases damage. I've seen a lot of people go between the spider ant and the skag, but I mean, again, it really comes down to how you want to play. Each of these will attack enemies automatically and give you extra damage as well as a distraction. So if you found out playing the beginning or playing Borderlands so far, you run into a group of enemies fairly often, 10 to 15, maybe sometimes 10 to 20 different enemies at one time. It definitely helps to have a pet that is very good at distraction, allowing you to either reload, heal up, etc., especially for boss fights. So pets can be amazingly beneficial for solo play, especially for those that don't really want to get into the PvE side with other groups. They just want to stick to solo. Then yeah, I would highly recommend Flak for just that Beastmaster ability. Now, in addition to this, Flak is also very focused on targeted damage. He's not that great for AoE or doing high amounts of damage to a big group like a Siren may be or a Moze may be, but he's focused mainly on targeted damage, a single target. So again, this makes him great for single play just because as you get into these bosses that become harder and harder over time, the ability to have a pet with you that also does damage, that also has a distraction, that allows you to focus on that target, it makes boss fights a lot easier. So Flak is actually the one that I highly specify if you're just going to stick to solo play, or maybe you're a little bit newer to the game, because you can rely highly on your pet. Now, some people may say that Flak is more for experienced Borderlands players, but to me it's very similar to World of Warcraft, right? If you've played World of Warcraft, know World of Warcraft, everybody knows that hunters are extremely easy to level, and that's because they have a pet that takes all the damage, they do damage themselves, and at a certain level you can kind of just sit back and say, go kill him, pet. I mean, it becomes very easy. So Flak is one of those easy classes that I recommend in the beginning. Okay, so for Flak skills, you have Fade Away, Rack Attack, and Gamma Burst. So Fade Away is where Flak actually cloaks himself, turning invisible, and then he can fire 3 shots while cloaked, and each shot is automatically a critical hit. I mean, it's every person's FPS dream to turn invisible, not be seen, have a pet, and hit 3 critical shots in a row. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. That skill is amazing. In addition to that, while he is cloaked, Flak gains increased movement speed and health regeneration. So basically, in Fade Away skill, you're a god. Again, this makes it very easy for solo play and why a lot of people chose Flak so far. Okay, in addition to this, you also have Rack Attack, and this is basically when Flak dive bomb enemies. This skill has multiple charges and generally can be recharged a lot faster than the other abilities. It seems fairly simple and straightforward, but the fact that you can actually kind of spam it a little bit in the game makes it extremely deadly, especially for when you're doing crowd-based damage or you're doing a specific target. Now, Flak's last skill is Gamma Burst. And basically what Gamma Burst is when Flak creates a rift at a target location and allows him to teleport his pet through the rift and basically causing radiation damage to any nearby enemy. While doing this, Flak's pet basically becomes this gigantic monster where he grows in size and deals bonus damage that is radiation based when it attacks. So Gamma Burst is actually very good. It's a skill that's focused on your pet specifically. So if you send your pet out, he's got full health, you're trying to do crowd control, you're trying to take down a boss, Gamma Burst allows your pet to become this just gigantic monster and essentially deal high amounts of damage. Now, if you use Gamma Burst while Flak's pet is actually dead, and I get this question a lot, it will cause the pet to revive with 30% health, but it will also double Gamma Burst cooldown time. So, I mean, you definitely want to use it when your pet is up, your pet is healthy, it has, 90 to 100% health, but if you need it in emergency cases, you can definitely use it, cause your pet to come back up. You just have to wait the extra amount of time for that regeneration or that cooldown. Okay, now getting over to the third person, and that is Zane. Now, Zane is probably my favorite, the one that I started with, just because I didn't want to ride that bandwagon of everybody playing Flag. I decided to choose Zane. Now, Zane is more of a support class. He has a protective barrier. In that protective barrier, if you're shooting through it to an enemy, it actually boosts damage. He also has a digiclone to distract enemies, and you can also swap places with that digiclone. And third, basically, you have a mini drone that you can control that you can use to attack enemies. Now, those are his three main classes essentially off the bat, but let's dive a little bit more into what each ability does. Okay, so for Digiclone, it sounds exactly what it's like. You spawn a clone of Zane. This clone basically stays in place, distracts, and fires at enemies. If you press LB or RB or L1 or R1 while the clone is active, it does cause Zane and the clone to swap places. So it's good with taking distractions, firing, go behind, heal, reload, and then you can swap places and then swap places out. It's a very good ability, probably the first one that I recommend you guys spec into when you have those talent points available, just because it helps you get better with practicing your aim, with practicing how the mechanics work with Borderlands 3 without getting a barrage of bullets firing at you at the same time. Now, his second ability, SNTNL, is what you'll see it, and it's abbreviated. This is the automated mini drone that you can send out into the battlefield to help you. It continually flies through the environment and attacks enemies with its machine guns. If you press LB or RB or L1 or R1, basically the SNTNL is active and it causes it to attack enemy under Zane's crosshairs, if any. So quote unquote, you can target certain enemies to actually attack with this drone, which makes it extremely important and beneficial, especially if you're doing mini bosses or you're doing large groups where you have extremely annoying, harder mobs to fight. Okay, now the last ability is Barrier, and I'm not going to knock this ability because it's actually very, very good. Now, Barrier allows Zane to deploy a barrier that blocks incoming projectiles, so bullets, missiles, whatever, anything that's incoming. Zane and his allies can actually shoot through that barrier, and if you guys shoot through that barrier at enemies, it does increase the amount of gun damage that you do. If you press LB or RB or L1 or R1 while the barrier is active, it actually picks it up and holds the barrier, but the size and bonuses are decreased. So you can actually replace your barrier in different places, making it extremely, extremely beneficial. Now, this is also one of the main abilities that I suggest people spec into if they're just getting used to Borderlands 3 or they're just getting used to the gameplay itself, because it allows you, again, to ignore those incoming bullets or incoming missiles, so that way you can get your aim down right, you can get the kind of the mechanics of the gameplay down. It really helps if you pick Zane, if you do Barrier or Digiclone first. Okay, so for Moze. Moze is all about damage. I mean, from the first time that you actually see Moze and you see her special ability, they bring out the bear, Moze is meant to be a high damage playing character. So without getting into too much, let's just go right into the skills itself for Moze. So Moze has a railgun, a minigun, and then a grenade launcher. Okay, so for Moze, besides her skills and abilities, she can essentially summon an Iron Bear mech, is what they call it, which can be equipped with one of 3 guns as well as secondary augments, including a flamethrower, a missile launcher, and a melee punch. Now, the Iron Bear does crazy amounts of damage. It has high protection on it. It's absolutely awesome and it's fun to do, especially when you're just starting out and you want to just wipe mobs off the map. The Iron Bear is a lot of fun, guys. For her skills specifically, you have the railgun, the minigun, and then the grenade launcher. Again, she's mainly a damage class, so all of her special abilities pertain to some type of high damage. So for the railgun actually fires electrified high velocity projectiles that deal shock damage. Now, this can be especially important when you have large crowds of enemies and you want to try to control them or slow them down or keep doing damage to them. The railgun definitely helps. The minigun, again, it's for taking down a specific targeted target or just controlling those little mobs that group up together in, you know, the amounts of 10 to 15. The minigun fires rapidly and is capable of sustained fire. When you fire the minigun, actually, it can fire for prolonged periods, but if you do that, it will cause it to overheat and become inoperable for a short time. Now, the last skill for Moze is the V35 grenade launcher, and I've seen a lot of people love this grenade launcher. It's a semi-automatic grenade launcher, and even though it fires grenades, its projectiles are unaffected by Moze's grenade mod. So it's actually really, really good. I've seen people take down bosses with it. I've seen people do crowd control and AoE with it. Just all around, Moze is all about damage, all about doing high amounts of damage. So this is kind of the role if you're thinking about an RPG, you're thinking about a DPS, a damage per second person, where when you get into those PvE groups and you have a sort of like a tank, Moze is going to be that person that's delivering most of the damage. So if you guys are new to the game, I would definitely recommend giving Moze a try. Now doing all that high amounts of damage that's guaranteed with Moze isn't actually guaranteed itself. It comes down to when you spec and what your talent trees are. Okay, so there are the 4 main characters that you can play with in Borderlands 3. Who knows if there may be more with DLC content. I definitely hope they do put more characters, just because it allows for more gameplay. It allows for you to try something new, especially when you've grinded the game out, done everything, and then the gameplay gets a little dry. So I hope there is more characters that come. 2K, if you're hearing me, definitely give us a new character. That would be lots of fun as people start to master all of these characters. So again, guys, it's not about what character is the best. It just comes down to what you prefer and making sure that you master that character. And talent builds and skills are highly important for when you want an effective Moze or Zane or Flak or Amara. If you guys would like to see a talent build specifically for each character, what talent should I use, what gives me the most damage, what's the most protection, definitely comment below and let me know. I plan on doing that anyways, but it would definitely be great for you guys to kind of solidify my reason to do that actual video. I'll do one for each character and explain why you should place those skill points where and how this causes Zane, Amara, Moze, or Flak to be the best character that they can be. So again, guys, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, like, and comment. I appreciate any views, any subscribers, any comments. Again, I'll comment back to anything. I hope this video was helpful. I'm Cerebro, and I'm officially out of here. Peace.